Warriors. Welcome to story time.
Well, Moto Warriors, as I'm heading home from minivan and I'm getting towards Bristol, Tennessee, it makes me think of the Taylor boys that I knew when I was a lot younger. I don't know if they're still alive or anything, but I'm gonna, as I'm riding through here, I'm gonna tell you about them. And they're not related. They're both their last names are Taylor, but they're not related. And both of them are really good guys. So if you happen to watch this and you know who I'm talking about, I'm not knocking them. I think they're really wonderful guys. They're just different. You know what I mean? But anyway, the first of the two Taylor boys here is Rufus, and we just called him Roof. But anyway, Rufus Taylor, he was something else, man. I tell you, he could grow a beard and hair faster than all get up, man. I tell you. But what Rufus used to do is he would let his hair and his beard grow. Even in high school, he would let his hair and his beard grow. And on May Day, every May Day, he would shave off half of his face on the beard and shave it all clean and leave the other side just hanging out, bushy old beard. And then on his head, he'd shave off the opposite side of his head. So on one side of the top of his head, he had hair that had gotten pretty long after, you know, a year of not cutting it. And on the opposite side, on the chin and, you know, face, had a big old bushy beard, made him look like a caveman on the other. And he'd stay that way for a couple days just to watch people's reaction and you know, whatever. And then he'd shave it off. Now, Rufus seemed kind of weird, but he was a good guy. Like I said, both these guys are. But he was odd. I mean, you would see him sometimes walking around like he gets snow, and he'd be hiking around on the mountain somewhere, barefoot in the snow. And you'd say, "Roof, what are you doing?" And he'd say he's toughening up his feet so that if he ever needed to go without shoes, he could do it. And you would see him walking on hot asphalt, icy ground, snow, whatever, barefoot sometimes. And it was always so he could toughen up his feet in case he didn't have money for shoes. I'm like, man, okay. So some of y'all might, you know, see the logic in that. Some of you might think he was a bit touched in the head, and I think maybe there's a little of both going on there. I don't know. But I just thought, you know, I'd share that about Rufus. And a lot of people stay away from him because they were kind of afraid of him. But he was harmless. He wouldn't hurt anybody. He was a good guy. And I hope he is still alive somewhere. Well, the other one, his name is Justin. And Justin, he ain't quite right, but man, he's got a good heart. I really like Justin. The first time I'd met him was way back. I was in college. You know, this was time back. And anyway, we had to take a public speaking course. And he happened to be in that course. And I didn't know him. It was the first time I'd ever met him. And, you know, in the course, you're supposed to get up and tell about yourself, you know, tell your name and then talk about your topic and, you know, kind of make your little speech to the class, and then you got graded on that and whatever. And so this is pretty much how Justin's presentation and public speaking course went. He got up in front of the class and he looked up and said, "Hey." And everybody said, "Hey, Justin." I didn't say, "Hey, Justin," because I didn't know him, but, you know, I just kind of smiled. And he said, "My name is Justin Taylor, and I'm gonna talk to you today about getting fired from your job. Some of you people, you might never been fired from a job, so you don't know what I'm talking about. When you get fired from your job, that means you don't work there no more, and you ain't getting no more money from that there place where you was working. He said, so if you need money and you're trying to save up for something, or you won't have a job if you get fired. Now, I hate to admit it, but I got fired. I was working down over there at Pizza Inn. I was cleaning tables and doing dishes and whatever kind of thing in there they need me to do. He said, he said that they was real busy one time, and they came up to me and they said, Justin, we need you to make the tea. And he said, I looked at him, I said, I didn't drink the tea. And they told me, Justin, we know you didn't drink the tea, but we're busy and we need the tea. That's what they told me. So I said to them, I don't like tea. I didn't drink the tea. I don't know how to make tea. I ain't gonna make the tea. And then they told the manager, and the manager come over and said, Justin, it's easy to make the tea, and the directions are on the side of the machine. Just do what the machine says, because the girls are busy on tables. You need to make the tea. I told the manager, you know what? I don't mean to be spiteful or mean or nothing there, but I tell you what, I don't like tea. I don't think people should drink tea. Tea ain't good for you with all that sugar y'all put in there. So I don't like tea. I don't drink tea. I didn't drink this tea, and I ain't gonna make the tea. He said, you know what he told me? He said, Justin, they're busy, I'm busy, you need to make the tea, and if you don't make the tea, I'm going to fire you. And he said, well, I ain't going to make the tea because I didn't drink it and I don't like it. He said, you know what, I got fired. Man, my mom and dad were real mad at me, and they tried to go down there and talk to the manager, and he said no, because you got to set an example that, if you don't do what you're supposed to, you get fired, and that I had to learn that lesson. Well, you know what? I learned a lesson. You can get, he said, did you know that? Did you know, he sounded like AOC. Did you know that? Did you know you can get fired for not making tea? Well, that's my public speaking speech today, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. My name's Justin Taylor, and thank you. And when he first started introducing himself and getting into it, right, I thought he was just joking around, talking like a hillbilly, or whatever, I thought he was just being silly. My name's Justin Taylor. I thought he was kidding, so I started to chuckle. Well, there's a lot of people in that class that knew Justin, and they turned around and gave me dirty looks, and when that happens, you done know you screwed up there, boy. So I thought, uh-oh, that must be the way he is. So I just sat there quietly, smiled, and when people were nodding, I'd nod, and then when he was done, I clapped my hands like everybody else did, and shortly after that class, he saw me in the hall, and he came up, and he said, I enjoyed your speech in class. And I said, thanks, Justin, I liked yours too. I said, at first I thought you were going to tell me you were joking, but then I found out you actually got fired. Sorry to hear that. And he said, that's okay, because I did get another job somewhere else. And then he said, I got a question for you. And I said, what's that, Justin? And he said, what do you think it hurt worse, getting stung by a hornet or getting stung by a wasp? And I just smiled and said, Justin, I don't rightly know. I really don't. But I tell you what, I wouldn't want to find out from either one. And he said, no, sir, me neither. And that's the kind of guy Justin is. I was at a sit-down type restaurant having a steak or something, and I looked up, and at the table over one or two is Justin with his mom and dad. And by then I got to know him pretty good, and I thought, you know, he's a real good guy. He ain't quite ticking right on all 8 cylinders, but he's a good guy. So I went up, he saw me and he smiled and waved, and then kind of like waved me to like come on over, you know. So I went over, shook his hand and shook his mom and dad's hand, and he introduced me. And I said, you know, Justin is a really good young man. He's got a heart of gold, and I like him. He's a good fella. And the dad said, you know, yeah, he's got a lot of really good friends. We don't really worry about him because there's so many people looking out after him. And I said, well, you can add me to that list too, because if I saw anybody giving him a hard time or messing with him, I'd be right there. And they're like, yeah, we appreciate that. So that's the story of the Taylor boys. I hope I didn't bore y'all. But remember to live your life with the heart of a Viking warrior. Bye for now.